While boots on the ground and face to face with a monster in Hell Let's Loose, a single unit on a squad may have the edge of slaying such a beast. A capable soldier who understands their tools of destruction is one of the monster's biggest fears, hiding in the woods just around the corner, waiting to strike. These beasts have a looming fear of death, for they know they are indeed being hunted. This is the moment where you, for a brief second, become a hero. This is Hell Let Loose, killing the monster.
There it goes! Alright, that tank, enemy tank is down at checkpoint. Want to relay that? Oh, there's another tank here. The Tiger.
What happened? We lost him.
Ziggy behind you! I got him. Oh, you died though!
In 1916, when the British first unleashed Mark I landships onto the battlefield at Flers-Courcelette, it struck fear into the Germans. Many of them fleeing the trenches, for they were hearing sounds they have never heard before. The roaring and clanking of the caterpillar track metal beast breaking through the fog caught them off guard. Fear kicked in, for they were receiving fire, but when they returned fire outside of artillery, it had very little effect on these war machines. The British successfully pulled the ruse off from the codename Tank. However, outside of the psychological effect it had on the Germans, this battle was a disaster for the British. Many of these landships broke down or ended up getting stuck due to the terrain. Fewer than 50 landships were available, and only fewer than 20 made it to the actual battle. And afterwards, when all was said and done, the Germans ended up capturing many of these landships. From this point on, it was now an arms race between the Germans and the British to constantly be one step forward than the other. From the experience from battling these landships at Flers-Courcelette, the Germans quickly understood that armor-piercing bullets would do damage to this new monster of an enemy. The Germans issued K-bullets, 7.92mm armor-piercing rounds to machine gunners and riflemen. The British then built the Mark IV, which was better protected. The Germans then had to develop a much stronger K-bullet, the 13.2mm. Coming closer to the end of the war, the British then developed the Mark V landship, and the Germans developed the world's first true anti-tank rifle, the 1918 Mauser.
In the early part of the previous century, Germany decided to go to war. And who did they go to war with? The world. It had never been tried before. And so you figure that would take about 5 seconds for the world to win, but no, it was actually close.
Come November 11th at 11 a.m. 1918, Germany signed an armistice. Collectively together, including the Allied nations, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, formally ending the war.
Then about 30 years pass, and Germany decides again to go to war, and again it chooses as its enemy the world.
After World War I, the Germans were prohibited from building any more of their own tanks due to the Treaty of Versailles. However, come 1933, Adolf Hitler came into power and secretly began production on more advanced tanks. By 1938, it was open knowledge that the Germans had been building up their tank forces. Due to this ploy by the Germans, other nations were then ill-equipped to deal with the newly advanced Panzer II, III, and IV. When Britain declared war on Germany in 1939, this marked the beginning of World War II. Landships had seen a significant upgrade from the World War I counterpart, but the infantry weapons to take these new improved beasts down had not. The British at the beginning of the war was utilizing two primary anti-tank rifles, the number 68 AT rifle grenade and the Boys anti-tank rifle. The Boys anti-tank rifle proved to be terrifying at the beginning of the war, but as time went on and tanks were being improved on, the Boys rifle at 50 yards away from a tank would merely bounce off the beasts and only scratch the paint. The British then knew they had to be the ones to once again push military technology forward. The British understood that the infantry needed a more effective weapon to counter these new and improved tanks. Come 1943, the first spring-loaded shell launcher at max direct range of 110 meters and an indirect max range of 320 meters, the British introduced the world to the Piat. Now, the history behind the technology and chemistry for the Piat gets a little interesting. There is an exact battle end moment that British staff officers concluded that kinetic-based weapons could no longer penetrate tank armor. During Operation Crusader, they were unable to collect any evidence the Boys was doing anything at all. Remember the British number 68 AT rifle grenade? That weapon is the very first heat anti-armor projectile weapon. This weapon is primitive. The 68 is a heat projectile, though in order for it to be fired, it had to be fitted to the rifle using a 2.5-inch discharger cup. It was more effective than the Boys rifle, easily breaking through 2 inches of armor, but in order for this to be pulled off, you would have had to have been 75 to 100 yards away, compared to the Boys' range of 300 to 500 yards. Outside of being difficult to use effectively, as well as hardly used at all in comparison to the Boys, at the beginning of the war, the 68 was considered Britain's greatest offense for taking down enemy armor. Even though the Boys served its purpose, it was still a kinetic weapon. The 68 was heat-based, but the Piat was heat-based and shape-charged, meaning it applied the Monroe effect. Predating World War I in 1888, an American chemist by the name of Charles E. Monroe discovered that a hollow cone containing cellulose nitrate detonating inches away from a metal plate would produce white-hot gases in molten steel that would penetrate thick armor. His discovery was published in Popular Science Monthly, Volume 56, in February 1900. Once again, however, as history serves inventors and discoveries, Charles E. Monroe's concentrated gun cotton went unnoticed for 44 years. During that time before 1939, Henry Mowapt, a Swiss-American inventor, demonstrated his shaped charged warheads to British and French authorities. It wasn't until World War II that these inventions and principles started being utilized, and once again in 1945, a section of the Popular Science Volume 56 article about Charles E. Monroe's discovery was republished for the general public, so they could understand how the bazooka worked.
Alright, tank is down.
In Hell Lets Loose, the Americans as of Update 6 are allowed to field the bazooka, and the Germans are given the Panzerschreck. These weapons are more advanced than the Piat, though the Monroe effect still applies. Only this time, these weapons are significantly stronger. These weapons and what to do with them is pretty straightforward. You are going to point them at a tank and fire.
Oh, no. I don't like it.
Tank is down.
Nice.
However, the same principles apply from when engaging in tank-to-tank combat. Be sure to take into account where you are aiming these weapons. If you are firing at the front of a tank, it will most likely bounce off, doing nothing at all outside of harassment. Be sure to aim at the weakest points, the tracks, the sides, and the rear.
He stole your shot.
Yeah, man, I was just about to arc it over there.
I know. Damn.
It probably would have bounced off anyway at that angle.
The Americans, as of right now, are given 4 rockets, and the Germans only 2. The bazooka fires a 3.5-pound rocket that can penetrate up to 5 inches of plate armor. Now the Panzerschreck fires a 7.25-pound rocket that can penetrate up to 8.25 inches of armor, which no Allied tanks even have. The Panzerschreck is a beast, but with its limited rounds, make sure they count. Hopefully, someone on your squad or an ally near you will be a rifleman that could drop ammo for you. If you happen to be playing as a rifleman and you see AT personnel engaging a tank, ask them if they need ammo. Work together to take the beasts down.
Got ammo if you need it.
Can I resupply rockets?
Yeah, you need it?
Yeah, I like
Ah,
to
the
see
enemy right there. Look at him. Down. Alright, hold on. Dropping. Here you go.
Slurms, you want to try and
Appreciate
get
it.
buried down at the supplies?
Now, you may not be able to take the beast to ultimate destruction every time. Tank crews as of right now can pop in and out of the tank in an instant. There is no animation of them climbing out of the hatch yet or the floor's escape door, which needs to be addressed, for this turns into being cheap for both sides of the coin here. If you are engaging a tank, the crew may pop out to attack you personally, but if you are quick enough, you can engage them back, ultimately decommissioning the use of the tank for the time being.
Alright, so the tank's not down, but I did weaken it and I killed a crew member who popped out. So that's decommissioned. I have no more ammo.
That's pretty good work though, man. Just anything to slow him down.
This is why I advocate, when tank hunting, to go with either a rifleman or another AT soldier. There are dual reasons for this. One is for ammo consumption, and the other is to deal with enemy infantry that could be around the tanks defending them.
All you, man.
Oh, nice work to you.
Bear in mind that the AT weapons offered may effectively be used for other reasons outside of tank hunting. The blast radius these weapons give off is great when used against groups of infantry, to help keep the opposition suppressed and to strike fear in your opponent. You may even get lucky and take down a garrison.
There, got their garrison.
Nice.
Good job, good job.
When confronted with an enemy MG position that is hindering your team's advance, this is a great opportunity to get violent. As long as you are being mindful if enemy tanks are nearby or not, do not be afraid to unleash hell on those MG positions. However, it is worth noting that right now in the game, there is no destructible environments. When firing onto a building with enemies inside it, you will not be able to penetrate or break away at the walls. You will, however, have a chance to kill or at least keep the enemy away from the windows. I am looking forward to when we are introduced to some form of bullet penetration and destructible environments.
Try to stay together. Just clear that fucking MG, yeah.
I'm shooting everything I got at it right now.
It is worth noting that as AT, you have access to a wrench. The same behavior is expected of you with the wrench as that of the engineer. If you are not tank hunting for the time being and a friendly tank is in need of repairs, don't hesitate to go repair them. Unless your officer calls upon you for something else, be sure to take the initiative.
Oh, I'm repairing the tank real quick.
With the wrench, as long as 30 supplies are around, you are able to build a very useful anti-tank gun out in the battlefield. As of right now, the Americans are able to place the 57mm gun M1, and the Germans are given the PaK-40. Since this game is an early access title, placing these down has a couple drawbacks, and for this, I am going to have to break character because this is a little weird. First thing, once you place it, you are not able to move it afterwards. Even though they are clearly sitting on tires, you cannot move the position of the gun outside of strafing the weapon left to right and the angle of the barrel for aim. Second drawback is if you end up somewhere else on the battlefield and you want to place a new heavy gun down, you won't be able to unless you dismantle the one you already placed or the enemy destroys it. I'm sure this will be addressed in the future, but right now, it's a little awkward. However, these placement weapons pack a punch. It's best used when you have a gunner and a loader, though you can easily operate these guns while solo. They are great against tanks, but can also be used to bombard infantry and key points. Be mindful though, since these weapons are threatening, you will also be hunted to destruction.
Ah, beautiful.
Nice spot, man. Good spotting right there.
If you happen to be an officer and have AT on your squad, be resourceful for them. Use your binoculars to spot enemy tanks and keep an eye out for them as they move into position to take the beast down.
No, you can load, I can spot. I got the binoculars.
Sounds like a plan.
With all of this said, I do hope as the game develops and new countries and theaters are added, we can possibly see the Boys, the 68, and the Piat introduced in the game, as well as other countries-based anti-tank weapons. I feel the technological advancements of anti-tank weapons made within the time of World War II has a rich history of rapid improvements in the name of progress to be one step ahead of the opposition. This class needs to be thoroughly explored. Tanks are an immediate threat when they come rolling in. Be sure as a squad member, whether you're an officer, engineer, rifleman, or AT, that the squad is equipped and ready to take action against the monsters of the battlefield. Engineers, be sure to place mines. Riflemen, make sure ammo boxes are placed to keep accounts for ammo consumption. Officers, make sure your AT unit is clear to engage the beast. As for you AT, you are the greatest foot mobile threat opposing tanks. Be sure to take aggressive action when opportunity presents itself. For this is your moment to be a hero.
Just one hit, that's what you need to do.
Yeah, there's that 827 almost leaving out my
Nice,
computer.
man. Good job.
Yo, fuck that tank, man.
Alright, let's get a pack 40 here. I believe the supplies are down.
I already placed so I need to kill that. Yeah,
Okay. You have another tank, I believe. Yeah.
The British understood that the Come on, just do it. You gotta just say it. From the experience from battling these tanks at Flers Courcelette, I need to say land ships because they weren't tanks on these war machines. The British successfully... Damn it. I feel the technological advances of... I had it. Come on.